Welcome to another episode of the Edmonds Moms Room podcast. We are so lucky to have on the podcast Gigi Brannan. So thank you so much for being here with us today. I am so excited for you to bring some financial advice and knowledge to the mom community. I think there's so many questions that we can have about financial security, how to generate wealth, maybe generational wealth. So I think you'll be a perfect voice to speak to all the moms listening to this.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to share on the topic, and awesome. I'm just a firm believer that no matter where you find yourself financially, whether you think that you have little means or whether you feel more secure in what you have, you can be successful. You can drive change in your life, and you can really make things happen, and your goals can be achieved regardless of where your financial condition is today.
So there's hope for people maybe living paycheck to paycheck.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
There's a book that I read early on in my career. I don't know when it was released, but probably like 20 years ago, because it was a long time ago that I read the book. But it was called The Millionaire Next Door. And the heart behind that book is like they gave the example of a physician earning a really handsome six-figure salary and another sort of blue-collar worker earning a fraction of what that physician was earning, and in the end, it was the person with the smaller paycheck that ended up far more secure financially for their retirement. And so that really shines a light on we have so much control over our financial futures, and it's really all about the decisions that we make and honoring savings first. And no matter where you are on the continuum of your lifestyle, whether your lifestyle might only take $2,500 a month in this community and you can get by, or you feel like you need $10,000 or $12,000 a month for your family to get by, you can do it.
Awesome.
And what's most important is that people do step back and ask themselves, what are my values? What's really important to me? And write it down. Write down what are your goals. Write down what concerns you. Mm-hmm. Write down what do you see changing. And keep a journal. If you're not working with a financial professional, you can do those steps on your own. And it's those behavioral pieces that I find make the difference for people. It's not what stock they bought. It's really their behaviors. And not only just thinking about their behaviors, but really taking action.
Wow. You just covered so much. So the goals hits close to home, but it's interesting. So when you have people document these goals or kind of say what your goals are you talking like long-term retirement goals? Are you talking 5-year goals?
So when I'm talking about what are your goals, I always ask people to break it apart. Short-term goals and long-term goals. So your short-term goals are going to be the things that are coming in under 5 years.
Okay.
Your long-term goals are going to be those things that are beyond 5 years. And most every life decision that's important to somebody has some intersection with money. So when you're thinking about what are your goals, don't limit yourself to the context of thinking about finances. Literally, just write down your heart goals. And then you're going to see, when you see what they are, that there's probably some intersection with money that's going to have to be aligned for those goals to play out into a dream being met one day.
Cool. So they're not necessarily financial goals, more so life.
They're life things that I hear from people, but sometimes they're very practical. Like, I'd like to be out of credit card debt in 5 years, or I'd like to be able to travel more freely with my family on a regular basis, or I'd like to be able to cut back and only work 3/4 time so I can spend a day a week with my family. Again, those are really like practical heart things, and I'm pretty sure as I mentioned and think about them, they all are actually kind of financially minded goals. Yes. When you really start to hear people's what's on their heart as far as short-term and long-term, when you talk goals, it's amazing the intersection of money that ends up coming to the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. It's almost like you're saying, like, what will fulfill you?
Certification this year as a behavioral financial advisor, and
cool.
this behavior work is really about looking and believing that there's 3 main components to the work that I do. There's traditional finance, which that's your technical knowledge and logic and principles and theories, and everybody who's a board certified CFP practitioner, certified financial planning practitioner, ought to know this technical, have this traditional finance basis of knowledge. Then there's the psychology component, and that's understanding human behavior. And then the other component that goes into the training that I've done is understanding the neuroscience and how our brains really operate around decision making and how our emotions can really impact our decision making in the end. And the neuroscience of that's our physiology, and that's how we're kind of hardwired as people. And it's really amazing when folks take the time to kind of step back and go through this process of identifying what their values are, documenting what their goals are. It naturally leads them towards what are the critical actions that you can take that are going to help get you there. And if we see that there's something out of alignment, it's easy to spot because you know what's important to you. We've documented that, and we know where you're trying to go, and then it just makes it more clear when you can see where maybe you get off track because you ended up perhaps following an emotion or a feeling rather than stopping and processing some rational thought around the decision-making process.
That's awesome. I wasn't expecting the conversation to go here, but I'm super happy it did. When you say, following an emotion, are we talking about are you sitting down with people and saying, oh, that was like a splurge spend, what's this over here? It's not that kind of...
I don't practice from a perspective of calling people out. That's not the position that I find myself in. Mm-hmm. I'm really a guide. Yeah. So I'm here to help people figure out what they want to do if they don't already know it. Yeah. A lot of times people just come to me saying, I think I could be doing things a little better, but I'm not really sure what. And it's literally that broad and that big, but they just have some compelling oomph within them that's saying, I probably should be looking at my life and my finances, and maybe I could be doing something a little smarter somewhere.
Cool.
And then from there, I guide them in the discussion, and we arrive, and I document for them what these important pieces are that then helps them naturally on their own conclude what it is that they want to do. And so my role is to help offer solutions once I understand what are your values, not taking my values, because if I don't know what your values are, all I can kind of do is make a judgment based on where my values are, and that's not going to help everybody. So I do my best to step back and really identify who are you, mm-hmm. what do you believe is important, what are you trying to do, what would you like to achieve, again, in the short term and the long term within your life's goals, and then let's look at your resources. What kind of income do you have? What kind of debt load are you under? What do you want to spend in retirement? Mm-hmm. A question that a lot of people ask is, when do people retire? What's the average retirement age? What's normal for when people retire? There's no answer for that. There's no normal. There is really no normal. It's so unique and specific based on what your definition of retirement even is. There is no one right answer.
Interesting.
So if you want and are comfortable with a more simple lifestyle in retirement, for example, right now in the Edmonds community, you could be a married couple living on, say, $5,000 a month, and that's a pretty comfortable retirement income in this community, given what rents and mortgages and cost of living is. I see retired folks who have simple standard of living that can get by on that. If you have more broad goals that include, I really want to travel. Well, travel's expensive. Mm-hmm. So, and if you don't have your mortgage paid off by the time you retire and you want to travel and have a comfortable lifestyle, then your expense load might be $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 a month. So when you think about person A who's comfortable with their retirement maybe costing an outload of $3,500 or $5,000 a month versus person B who wants to know that they're secure to have a spending goal of, say, $15,000 a month, there's a huge impact on what do you need to do to get there and when will you get there. Mm-hmm. And so there's where the advice that I give is very, very individualized based on what's your definition of success? What do you want to see for yourself? And I'm not going to serve you well if I try to put my judgments on you for what that's going to be that's going to make you happy.
Right.
But ultimately, I believe that people will be successful when they take the time to honor what's important to them with their money. And there's like probably a few really key important things that people can do, such as a good emergency reserve. No matter what your financial situation is, whether you have a little or you have a lot, a good solid emergency reserve can bail you out when you get in trouble or when life hits you with unexpected circumstances, because life is going to hit you with unexpected circumstances. We just have change after change that comes at us. We have babies, we have marriages, we have divorces, we have parents that pass and parents that get sick, and we need to step out of our workforces, and so many things happen to people along the way that are emergency. Like all of a sudden you've got to make a decision, and all of a sudden you need access to money. Or if you're a homeowner, it just might be that the dishwasher broke. Or if you're not a homeowner, it might be that your child just busted their tooth on a popcorn kernel, and now it's going to cost you $2,500 for the root canal and the crown and the whatever. So generally speaking, 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
If you want to be a little more conservative, go 12 months of your monthly living expenses. And that's what should be your goal to have in a savings account.
Okay.
It could be a certificate of deposit, a CD at the bank, but it should be really conservative. In my opinion, if you need to call on money potentially within the next 3 to 4 years, you want to have that money in a really safe place, not in stocks.
Yeah.
Just because the market is very volatile in short-term movements of time, and it's really a bummer if your stocks are down 30% and that's when you need to sell to free up some cash. It hurts. It doesn't feel good, and that's not what we want to see happen for people. So step one in financial foundation is a solid cash reserve. And if you don't have a solid cash reserve, in my opinion, you don't want to be stretching into looking for other investments, because you'll miss that piece of your foundation that's really important to be secure.
Cool. Let me ask you about that solid cash reserve. So you drop it in a savings account and it's a low interest gain. Are there certain savings accounts that maybe are they all about the same?
Sure. Unfortunately, right now we are in a historically low interest rate environment. So you're going to find very paltry options everywhere you go. You're going to be in this present environment right now for cash savings, high interest savings accounts. You can't find anything paying more than 2%. You're lucky if you find something between 1 and 2. My guidance is it's much less important what you're earning on your savings as that you are saving.
Cool.
Literally, if it is a jar in the cabinet in the kitchen, cool. It can be stolen though, so that's like kind of why you want to put it in the bank. But the other part to getting, like, so how do you get the reserve started? If you don't have one, or maybe you have a little bit of money in the bank, but you know, I should probably be doing some effort to get this to be a larger, more secure reserve for my family. My guidance is to have an automatic monthly feed going into that account. And even if you've met your goal, perhaps $20,000 is the cash reserve that your family needs, or perhaps $10,000 is the cash reserve that your family needs to feel secure. Don't stop saving when you've reached the goal. The reason is, when you stop the savings and then start putting that money somewhere else because you reached your goal, well, life is going to happen at some point. One of those unexpected events is going to come up, and you're going to need to reach in to that emergency reserve and pull from it. And sometimes that can create a lot of anxiety for people, because then they've just had to write a big check out of that emergency reserve. It's drained down, and oftentimes that's come along with some kind of an emotional hard time that's happening in their life, and it can cause a lot of unnecessary stress. So I encourage people, decide what's the amount that your family can let go into that dedicated savings and put it in automatic. Let it go every month. Either let it go out of your employer's paycheck where it's just going straight into your savings account, or create an automatic arrangement at the bank where you're just setting it and forgetting it. And you know you're going to wake up every month and not even have to think about that thing. It's just going to happen.
Cool.
And so the next step beyond that solid cash reserve is going to be your retirement savings. Actually, maybe before I get to retirement savings, I want to address consumer debt and debt in general. Student loans, your mortgage, your credit card, your auto loan. again, have that goals conversation with yourself. What's my objective here? When do I want this to be paid off? And there are so many free, wonderful calculators that you can find on Google that'll tell you based on the balance that you have in your debt, what your interest rate is, and when you want to have it paid off, this is the amount of payment that you need to make. So play around with that, and then, you know, maybe if you wanted your debt to be paid off in 5 years, but then you look at what that number is, if it's not feasible financially, then you need to readdress, okay, is there something else I can cut back on as a spending so that I can honor this goal? Or maybe I need to reframe and realize that I'm okay if I pay this off in 8 years instead of 5 years, so I have a little more liquidity to do other things. But again, in order to really get success to happen, put it on auto pay. Don't allow yourself to make the decision month to month. When I see people, especially with debt payoff plans, allowing themselves to make the decision month to month what amount they're going to parcel over to that debt payment, oftentimes our emotions get the better of us, and something came up that month, it's Christmas, or it was your child's birthday this month, or you feel like you get hit with some other expenses, and you feel, oh, I know I wanted to do that, but I just can't this month. Mm-hmm. Well, when you set it up on automatic and it just happens, it will happen. You will get there. Your goal will be achieved simply by just honoring that decision that you made to yourself to let that chunk of capital go to that goal.
Cool.
And that's the same advice I have around retirement savings.
Let me interject. So that was consumer debt?
All forms of debt.
So mortgage incorporated into that?
Yes, yes,
okay.
Because with your mortgage, you really want to be thinking, when do I want this mortgage paid off? If you have a mortgage payment and maybe you're 45 years old and you just bought your first home and you've taken on a 30-year mortgage, if you only make your required payments, come 20 years from now, you could be in a health condition. I mean, you might think you're going to work till 75, but what if you get forced out of your job or your health doesn't allow you to keep working? You need a lot more financial resource of savings to support your standard of living, plus making that mortgage payment in retirement, versus individual B who decided at 45, even though they took on a 30-year mortgage, they were going to make a calculation right out the gate that says, I'm going to apply a payment every single month that has extra going to principal. I'm going to put that extra. And when you do it at the beginning, oftentimes it's not a ton of money. Like $250 might shave 7 years off your mortgage. It's dramatic.
That's cool.
The impact. So debt to me is across the board. It doesn't matter whether it was consumer debt and kind of through overspending behaviors, or really calculated decisions that you've made in life that I'm going to use debt in this way to help get me ahead. Either way, you better have a plan for when you want to get it paid off so that life doesn't just kind of happen and then you realize, I've lost time and ground.
Yeah. So that's great information. So at the same time that you are paying down this debt, say it's a mortgage, say it's student loans, whatever it may be, are you concurrently, I know you're diving into retirement, are you concurrently saving for retirement?
Yes. So I'm a strong believer in multi-pronged savings all at once. So you don't need to just do one thing and wait for that to get finished before you do the next thing.
Okay.
You will make huge headway when you're doing multiple things at once. But again, it just kind of comes back to assessing your capabilities and doing some budgeting work of take out a spreadsheet and at the top write down, here's how much money a month comes into our household. Here's our take-home income. This comes in every month. And then what goes out every month? Just start there from an observation standpoint. And it's a very simple exercise that I think everybody can do with a simple spreadsheet. And then take the calculation at the bottom of the page. You're going to say, I had this income that came up in here, and I know, and just start with the things that sometimes it can be difficult if people haven't done budgeting. It feels daunting, it feels overwhelming to figure out where their money has gone. Start with the things that you've committed to. Every month when I wake up, this bill's going out the door, this subscription's going out the door, this payment's going out the door because I have signed up for these things. Start with those things, those are the obvious, and then work into the less obvious. And on the less obvious, that's kind of what I call the squishy spending part. Sometimes you need to look back at 3 or 6 months worth of your bank statements and take out some different colored highlighters. You know, use one highlighter for this is everywhere I was at the grocery store. This is a highlighter for here's every time I filled up the gas at the pump. Use a different highlighter for this is all the times we've gone out to dinner. And sometimes when you go back and look at your last 3 or 6 months of spending activity, you can draw some conclusions that can be some big ahas of like, oh, wow, here's an area where I had no idea I was actually spending $800 a month on dining. I thought I was spending $400 a month on dining. Well, that's a really easy thing that you can change if it's important to you. Mm-hmm. But again, it's not my job to look at someone's spending plan and give them any judgment as to right or wrong. Yeah. Because that spending plan is unique to you. It's unique to your values. But I am here to help guide people if I see inconsistencies. Cool. When I know what do you value, what are your goals, and where are your resources going. Mm-hmm. And there's where as a professional I can come in and give you some context and some ideas and some strategies about, would you like to consider doing this differently? Would you like to consider this strategy? And then something will resonate with them and they'll say, yeah, no, that's not my behavior. There's no way that's going to work for me. Or, oh yeah, that's really gonna help me.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. It's so cool to hear you say that. I just have a random question, but what age do people like really start to come to you for this kind of advice? Is it across the lifespan?
I don't think it is.
Okay.
I think typical age is probably late 30s, early 40s. Okay. And I just think it's a natural life progression that when we're getting started in our careers, we're not earning as much as when we're 10, 12, 15 years into our careers. Actually, also, I've been married 23 years. My boys are age 13 and 17. And I know in those earlier years, sometimes it's a real struggle to meet all of the financial demands. And so I think people in general have less confidence to think that they can make a change that's going to be meaningful to them given the amount of time and how strapped for time they are. However, while that might be not the time to hire a professional when you're younger and just getting out the door, it's definitely, you can still do a lot of this on your own when you know what should I be looking to, what should I be paying attention to, what's going to really make a difference. And I truly believe that it's your behaviors, it's your decisions, but making decisions and looking at the big picture is only half of it. It's actually taking action based on that you've looked at your picture, you've made some decisions, you've arrived at some observations, but a plan is no good if you don't take action with it. Yeah. So it's really the honoring the taking of action. Okay. And when I see people who make those 3 decisions around how much should be going into my cash reserve every month, how much should be going to those debt payments every month, and what percentage should be going into my retirement account every month. Get those things on automatic. Set them, forget them, and then spend the rest and have fun with your life. You'll have so much less stress. Cool. Because you just know you've already honored what's important to you. Yeah. And then you rest with that. Yeah. And I see the load of stress that is removed from my clients' lives when they get into the mode of honoring what's important to them financially first, and then feeling totally free to spend the rest guilt-free. Doesn't matter.
That's so cool. I know you're resonating with so many people right now, and myself. This is going to be, I have to listen back and take notes. I mean, it's that good. So I want to switch gears. You said you had kids yourself. Yeah. I have 2 young kids, 4 and 2. Okay. And I'm just curious on your perspectives as saving for their future, saving maybe for college or whatever it may be. What do you have any insight into that, or do you want to go there?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. And I have to give a big it depends to my answer in this, because the number one thing is that it really does depend on a person's situation, and ultimately, what's your goal? What is it that you want to achieve? And then there are a number of reasons why people save for their kids. Is it that you want to be teaching them smart money management skills and helping them learn the value of savings and how they can do that? Is it that you want to be building a reserve so that when they go to college, you're able to help support that so they don't have to shoulder the burden of it themselves. Once you ask yourself, again, it's this goals question, right?
Yeah.
So what's my goal here when I think about saving for my kid? What is it that I'm trying to achieve? Then that will lead us to the next question of what's appropriate for me, and around appropriateness and suitability, there's a big thing that needs to be discussed regarding risk tolerance. What is your comfort zone for taking any kind of financial risk with this savings? And when you ask yourself, where do I fall on the continuum of risk for this goal, you're going to then have the answer to, should I be looking at a market-based investment that's going to go up and down but may have more growth potential over time? Or should I be opening up a custodial savings account at the bank and just keeping this super secure and liquid and right where I can touch and feel it and know it's never going to go anywhere? Mm-hmm. So I think when people step back from that and ask themselves those questions, then they can develop a good strategy to meet their goals. And often in this one also, it's going to be a multi-pronged thing. You might realize, oh, it's important that Johnny has his own savings account, so when he does this or that, or when family members give him money for his birthday, that there's a place that he knows he should go to safely put that money. And then if it's for college savings, it's really dependent upon how soon you need to access this money again. And if your child is within 4 years to college, I really have a very detailed discussion with folks around market risk and understanding what might happen as far as downside volatility in short amounts of time. If you've got a 2-year-old, you've got a 4-year-old, you have time on your side. And so you can take more risk and be a little more comfortable wading through the recessionary times that we're going to experience. It's not a matter of if my investment goes down one day. Your investment will go down in different periods of time based on different market events happening. And it's been over 10 years since we've had a recession. Like clockwork, we get them. There's going to be another one. Mm-hmm. We don't know when it's going to come. We don't know the extent of how long it'll last when it does. But we do know through history what the declines look like in a portfolio value when you've got stocks in a down market environment. And we want to make sure that investors can stay put to their plan when we hit these tests of the economy.
Wonderful. Let's see, there was another question. Oh, I would love you to explore when thinking about investing from like a real estate versus markets, mm-hmm. when you're putting money somewhere that's not liquid. Do you feel comfortable touching on that at all?
Well, I am less comfortable touching on that because I'm a firm believer that when it comes to what should anybody invest in, it's absolutely situationally given advice. And so again, I need to understand what's important to you. What are you trying to achieve? If you want to invest in real estate for passive income one day, are you comfortable being a landlord? Do you understand all the expenses that are going to be involved? Do you want to hire a property management company? How are you going to manage that investment? And do you have the cash reserve on the side that's going to help you when the unexpected happens with that investment? Because just like it's going to happen with your home, it's going to happen with your rental. You're going to need to replace the roof. You're going to need to paint it. You're going to need to replace the carpet. You're going to need to do routine maintenance. Mm-hmm. I've been guided by a principle that seems pretty across the board works for people with regards to when they think, what should I have in my emergency reserve relative to servicing this home I own? Because mm-hmm. we know these things are going to come up, right? That all those things I just mentioned, they're going to happen. Mm-hmm. Textbook guidance says 1% of the market value of your home. Okay. So if your home is worth $500,000, you should probably have a dedicated savings account where you're accumulating $5,000 a year.
Wow.
Through monthly payments that are in a sinking fund. I call it a sinking fund because it's just going to sink into these projects, but that's okay. You have this home, you've made this investment, you need to keep it in good repair, and your couch is not going to last forever. Mm-hmm. Your bed is not going to last forever. Your kid is going to draw with Sharpie all over, something somewhere that there's somebody else's in your home. Things are going to happen, and it's going to cost you money. Yeah. So it's really important, and I see the value of the stress that's relieved on people's shoulders when they exercise this principle.
Of the sinking fund.
Yeah, and if you're not able to, if that feels oppressive to you, if that feels like, oh my gosh, there's no way I could put that money aside, then I would really encourage you to be asking yourself, is home ownership appropriate for you right now? Because it's not the appropriate solution for some people. Sometimes, given your circumstances, your goals, you're safer in a rental market where you're limiting those extraordinary wild cards that life is going to throw at you through home ownership.
That's good. The sinking fund. I really like that.
There's another interesting statistic that I wrote down here for our talk today, and that was that 75% of what we hear, we forget in 3 days. And so that was kind of fitting, given that we're on this podcast. People are listening, and while you might hear something that's like this aha, well, you're going to just live out a couple of days, and then this is going to fall maybe to the back doldrums of your thinking. And so what does matter is what we do. What we do is what matters most. And we don't know what's going to happen in our life. There is no way, as much as we might try to think we're in control, life often knocks us on our behinds and shows us that we don't know the way things are really going to go. And so I find that people are much more positioned for success to navigate life's uncertainties when they honor this planning work for themselves. And again, you don't need a professional for this. Some people choose to hire a professional because they don't have the time. Or I have a lot of husband and wives who tell me outside of, they come in and sit down with me every 6 months and we negotiate how their financial life is looking, and maybe someone got a raise, or maybe someone lost a job, or maybe they had to just buy a car and for their 16-year-old, and now their expense load just went up by $500 a month because they've got an auto payment and high car insurance. And so when life happens, sometimes between husband and wife, or if you're a single parent at home, you've got nobody to bounce this stuff off of. And so you can kind of get into freeze mode where you're just overwhelmed, or you're not sure if you're qualified, and so you don't make decisions. And so my encouragement is, I think that people could even buddy up on this together and be supportive as friends. If you've got a girlfriend who's caring about this stuff in her life, maybe if you guys could trust each other enough to be open about it and hold each other accountable to, hey, do you want to go through this goal stuff? Like, what are your goals? What are your goals? What are you concerned about?
Yeah.
What do you think is changing ahead? What do you think maybe you should do differently? You can do this dialogue between a trusted friend, but then of course you can also work with a financial professional who practices from this value line. Yeah,
that's great to hear. So, I mean, it sounds like planning is essential. One of my mentors says, the people with the best lives make the best decisions. And I really think that planning allows you to make those best decisions. And also, you're making the decisions that support your goals. So that's a great way to look at it. I'm so grateful that you've shared all this.
Yeah, so those steps that anybody can take, regardless of your present financial condition today, that I think resonate across the board, I think they apply for everybody. It is plan. Set your goals, make your decisions, and most importantly, take action. And it's in the taking of the action that you get confidence in knowing, I'm doing something. And then trust it. Trust the process. Trust the process that you have done for yourself. It will provide results if you honor it. You will see that money go to work and do exactly what you intended it to do if you can hold true to that plan. And it just resolves so much day-to-day life stress that people otherwise turmoil and toil with on a kind of a month-to-month and sometimes day-to-day and sometimes hour-to-hour basis in our lives of like, oh, am I doing the right thing?
Right. Yeah. That's good. Well, this has been invaluable. Like I said, I think people should take notes so they don't forget 75% of the things you've said today. Is there anything else you want to leave us with? Or
well, I will speak with one other thing about decision making.
Yeah.
And that's just really understanding that no one can predict the future. And we know with certainty there's uncertainty. There is going to be stuff that's going to come up that we can't possibly foresee. And the biggest impact of personal performance is a function of our decision-making capabilities. There's three main pieces that go into performance for us as humans, and it's our talent, our skills, and our decision-making capabilities. And through the reading that I've done, we have twice the impact from our decision-making capabilities than from our talents or from our skills. So if you're lacking some confidence, thinking, oh, maybe I don't have these money management skills, or I don't know if I have the talent to do this, that's really not what's most important. What's most important is the decisions and making them, and then revisit them. Because setting a plan is step one, but you're not done, because your life is going to change, and you need to have quarterly and semi-annual reviews with yourself and your goals to come back to those decisions that you last made and re-ask yourself, what's changed? Mm-hmm. Are these still the decisions that I want to be holding with right now? And I see progress happen the fastest for individuals who do this review process of their goals and reviews of their actions, and then tweaking the decisions that they've made a little bit based on what life just threw at them 6 months ago. Okay. And the other thing that I hear from married couples is that working with a financial professional, oftentimes it's the only time as husband and wife that they talk about their money. And talking about their money at home can sometimes be not necessarily a safe environment. Perhaps one isn't sure the other one knows what they're talking about, or they're just not, there's some level of confidence that is lacking that produces some insecurity in their ability to arrive at decisions and then take action. And so I think one of the most rewarding pieces of feedback that I get from my married couples is when they give me the feedback of saying, gosh, Gigi, outside of these meetings, we don't talk about this stuff. And because of these meetings, you help us make decisions, and then we just play them out, and we see ourselves move forward. And that's the super rewarding part of my work.
That's awesome. That's great. Where can people find you?
I'm on the corner of 3rd and Dayton in downtown Edmonds, Ameriprise Financial. I'm a franchise owner. I have a small boutique business shop there. There are a number of Ameriprise Financial offices here around, and that's where you'll find mine.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. I know this was hugely valuable for our audience, so thank you.
Thank you for having me.
The Edmonds Moms Room podcast is brought to you by Body Motion Physical Therapy. We help women through pregnancy and beyond so they can live active, confident, and healthy lives.